Hello, everyone. This is episode 51 of the Justin Files podcast, a member of the Broken Jars Network. And for our topic today, we're going to be going over all that was recorded, or at least the spotlight that was recorded at Salt Lake City Comic Con, which Justin attended and asked a question.
Woo!
Yeah, represent. So we're going to take all the little things that he said and nitpick everything and hope that we can get something new, which we might.
There's actually a fair bit of new material.
Yeah, I thought like it was an interesting panel because people weren't asking quite as many repetitive questions, which I think is an effect of how little we've had recently.
I was just sitting here when you said represent, trying to come up with like a Dresden Files, hands, like West Side, East Side. Like I can't come up with anything with one hand.
Well, you got to do like those defensive gestures, right? So it'd probably come out looking like blood anyway. So
I mean, we could just do like evil fingers because wizards. I'm thinking of Palpatine, with the lightning.
Right.
Are you saying all wizards are evil?
No, I'm saying that if they're going to be shooting lightning, they're probably evil. And lightning's cool.
Have we seen a wizard shoot lightning yet?
Yes.
We have?
Elaine does a lot of lightning magic.
Well, she could be evil.
Elaine confirmed Komori? Anyone?
Yeah. I feel like we got baited into something there. Wait a minute, that's not what I said at all.
To start out, he did cover sort of release dates. The next book we get is Briefcases, which will include Zoo Day. Unfortunately, it's not named Electric Boogaloo. I really like that name, though.
Yeah, and it's not Zoo Crew, so I mean that was clearly a miss on his part, but that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. Zoo Day, it's descriptive, and we do get Mouse's perspective on it, which is nice, but I really liked your title of it.
Right. We're going to get 3 perspectives, though, at least, it sounds like. So we're going to get Harry's, then Maggie's, then Mouse's. Maybe not in that order, but probably in that order.
It sounded like, from what he said, it would be in that order because Mouse is the one who's going to reveal what was actually going on.
Right. Because he knows too much, right? That's why we haven't had his perspective yet. So.
Right. And that's supposed to come out summer 2018. He said June, but Priscilla says he's just, sometime in the summer months.
Yeah. Don't kill him, because if you kill him, then we're mad and his publisher's mad. And he was promising an aggressive timeline, and just count on summer. So.
Mm-hmm. And peace talks.
At least I have some sort of closure, some knowledge.
Right.
I have an end date in sight.
Yeah. 8 to 12 weeks after Briefcases.
Which is also still really freaking aggressive in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to hold it against him. I'm just going to say, look, if we get it in 2018, I'll be happy. So I'd be happy with, 6 to 8 months after, because we'll finally have it.
I would not.
I know. I'm with you. Because I'm trying to... I think Amber was like, yeah, we should totally be like, when's the book coming out? And I'm like, I'm not wasting my question on that. I know what the answer is going to be. He's going to bring it up anyway. We're going to ask a different question. So
yeah,
I think she's definitely in camp Andreas for write the book already.
But
it's not like
we have a rough
one of those people who want to hound him about it. And it's mostly just for fun, right? But it's like when you've been used to once a year. It's like I joined around Changes, I think, and there was once a year, and then it took like a year and a half, and now it's been 3 years, so it's been like.
Yeah, and also when you're part of a podcast that's looking for topics to do, it's getting a little hard. But we have an end date in sight next year, so okay, we'll be good, right? We've just got a year to wait.
I know, right? That's only 104 more episodes. No, wait, scratch that. 20 sorry, I went the wrong way.
104. That's like that's 3 times the amount we had. We started around Skin Games.
So
no, but that is 26 more episodes. It's like shit,
right?
Okay,
get writing. Where are those monkeys with the typewriters? Come on.
Yeah, and if anyone has topic suggestions, please tell them to us because we're running out. Okay. On to some of the things that he said. He said that Mr. is, of course, very important, but he might be getting some more drama later towards the series, possibly in the ending trilogy.
I mean, he keeps insisting Mr. is just a cat, as in not supernatural.
But he's also stated that all the cats in the Cinder Spires are Mister's children or grandchildren.
Yeah, so I every time someone's like, "Well, Jim said rule number 1, the doctor lies." All right, so
he's a fairy.
He's a fairy. Goddamn right. Like, so he's going to tell you the truth as far as it's going to screw you up somewhere.
Right. That's why we're doing an entire episode nitpicking what he said in 1 hour.
Right. So yeah, what it sounds like is we're going to get a bigger, better changes in a way. Like that's what I kind of read into it. And I mean, if the Cinder Spire's cats are his descendants, pro tip, that means he lives. Sorry, spoilers. He's going to make it.
He's not going to hurt the cat. I mean, he's evil and he tortures everyone, but he's not going to hurt the cat.
I mean, the cat is going to die from old age before the bigger Politics trilogy if it's just a cat.
Oh, God.
Well, and if he's
what I'm thinking is what I was actually thinking about that is that like he's gonna the drama is not gonna be like because anything will be Mister, but just the massive loss we'll all feel when he's gone, and how Dresden and probably Bunny and Maggie will react to have their favorite pet die.
So it's been about 15 years that's passed in the book series because he started at 20 and now he's like 40-ish. Or 25 and then 40-ish, and then
he's like
he's already 30s. Pretty old for a cat. Like, if he was 6 months to a year at the start.
Well, actually, I looked this up the other day because I was talking with my mom about cats, and cats who live inside. I mean, Mister goes outside, but let's just say he has the same lifespan as a cat who gets to go to the vet often and stuff like that. It's 15 to 16 years. Not uncommon that they can live to 20.
So he might live right up through until the end of the BAT, and then.
I mean, if we're thinking, which is
even of natural causes, ouch.
If we're thinking 21, 22 case files, 2021, 22, unless he speeds up like he's done now with all of them in between, instead of a year, it's going to be 6 months or 3 months. I mean, he's still going to die before the BAT them.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Maybe somehow Dresden working magic in his area like affects him, and he lives a little longer. Who knows? But the thing I was thinking,
that's not impossible. And Mouse is also magical, right? And it's like a celestial being. It might have some sort of ambient healing effect. We could easily make that happen, or Jim could.
Right. The other thing I was thinking is I was like, oh, well, so he makes it, right? Because that's the kind of rule of thumb that I follow with Dresden himself. But it's like he goes on excursions all the time. He's probably already had little broods running around, like causing hell in Chicago. So, why do you think we haven't seen so many trolls lately? Thanks, Mister. He's been eating all those little troll things from Restoration of Faith.
I mean, I don't know if Mister's castrated. I don't think he is.
No.
So there's probably several Mr. Litters out there.
Yeah.
Are we going to see a Mr. Junior?
That could be funny.
He just shows up one day and one of the kittens he's fathered has followed him?
Well, here's the thing, is that Mister's now living with Murphy. So if we see more Mister, then we see more Murphy and possibly Harry and Murphy living together.
Surely Mister is moving back in with Harry.
Depends on where Harry is living. Is he?
It's been said that he's living in Molly's apartment, right? I remember this.
That did come out of one of the Q&As, I thought. So
yeah, he's living in Molly's apartment with his daughter.
Maybe he moves into Murphy's place eventually. He just needed the place that was already
living there right now with his daughter. And if it's good enough for his daughter to move in, then it's good enough for Mister to move back in.
Maybe he won't move into Murphy's place until they get married, which is totally going to happen, right? He did say he has plans for Harry's relationships. He didn't specify what.
They're all bad, though. Come on. As hopeful as I am for Harry's future, at no point do I think that he's going to wind up with a white wedding and everything's going to be okay.
Oh, probably not a nice, happy, easy wedding, but I figure it'll happen at some point.
Yeah, it's going to be they're slinging spells and she's shooting the P90 and the priest is in the background Father of Horhill's do you? And she's like, yeah. Do you? Yeah, grenade. That's what it's going to be.
I actually thought it's going to be they're standing there at the altar. He says, I do. She says, I do. And then she gets shot or something and dies in front of him.
Wow, you're dark.
No, I'm just expecting Jim to do something like that. Isn't that within reason of him doing something like that? I could see him do that. Maybe not shot, but then like I don't know, gets cursed and falls to the ground.
A little too simple. I think he'd go with something a bit more.
Are you calling my genius writing ability simple?
Sometimes the story coming up ability, yes, a little bit. That's kind of simple.
Sometimes simplicity is simple, but in this case, I think it works against you.
So I should not be holding on to that dream as an author then.
Genius is simple. That's what I meant to say. Anyway.
Okay. Well, this little tidbit I liked when he described how he came up with the idea of demon reach is that in writing Blood Rights, he was looking at the coastline of Chicago on Lake Michigan. And there were, right when Google Earth was starting to get really up and running, there was just a giant section that was map unavailable from prohibition area. So it's like, yeah, right there, Evil Island.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Such a fantastic thing because especially in the Dresden verse, like you've got everything, and it gave him all the leeway he needed to make something up that we were like, that's kind of plausible. And then his full description of Demon Reach is like, for all you know, there is an island there, but they've had it expunged from the public record because it's creepy and bad things happen there.
Yeah, kind of like I think Mist of Avalon version of Avalon is like it's always covered in mists. So that's how it stays hidden, right? Make it work. Make it happen.
Right. Now I definitely want to go find where this is exactly, though, if it's still like a hole in the map.
Yeah, I mean, it's been long enough they might have fixed it, but I don't know. I liked it.
Unless it really is a secret evil island, in which case it's still going to be missing. Like legitimately though, I mean, Google and other companies like that, they hide stuff from the maps, but mostly because it's a private residence and it's been requested, or because the government has stepped in and said like this, you're not allowed to like map this out. You know,
this is Area 51 and exactly. That's just like no bueno.
Right. So I'm like, what crazy secret base do we not know actually is out there? So
in Lake Michigan.
Right.
Well, it actually is, Demon Reach, and like every big company and like government knows about it, and they're just like, we gotta hide it because otherwise people go there and get driven insane.
Yeah,
right.
And he did have a question that was like the captives that are on Demon Reach. Will he ever describe them to us, and will we recognize them? And he said yes and yes. So we'll notice who they are eventually.
It's never going to be relevant. So. The British guy was a red herring that's never going to pay off, and Chekhov's gun is going to remain unfired. Like, yeah, dude, like possibly the BAT is going to be like this, like a jailbreak. It finally actually happens, I don't know. There's so many different things that it could be, but he's got lots and lots of outsiders locked up in there. It's going to be a thing.
You think there's outsiders locked up in there?
Didn't he describe some of them? Like some of the crystals were as big as a house, and
yeah, he definitely described
more evil,
like weird evil shit. I never knew if like if this is an outsider or not an outsider, or is it just like some never entity, or who knows?
I mean, they might not be outsiders; they might be insiders.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, that's what's funny is like it would have been all too easy for the sleeper to just be there in Demon Reach, but. Like you've got that whole thing where it's like maybe there's some lesser ones, like maybe he's got some Shoggoths running around and some other things. But some Dark Young, that would be fun. That would be plenty bad. But
the sleeper is the only confirmed outsider that's inside, right? Other than the walkers.
Right. I would include the walkers in that because they kind of like blur the line, but it did seem to infer that there were others, I thought. So that just the sleeper was like one of. So, but yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Sorry, you guys really need to read some more Lovecraft. Like even my little bits, I'm like, here it comes.
It's on my list. I got to get to it eventually. But.
We're gonna have to do a video or like an episode where that's all I do is like. Here's all the things that I think you should need to know.
I mean, I get to experience so much Lovecraftian lore through almost any popular fiction these days. Like, There's a lot of Lovecraft in it. often, like even like Supernatural, Dresden Files, other books as well. I just can't remember off the top of my head. It's often used. World of Warcraft, it's used.
Really? I didn't realize there were any references in there.
Oh, basically, the biggest bad guys are the Lovecraftians. They're called Shadow Lords, and they're like from outside our reality. That's
Gotcha.
And it's just like, do I even need to like read Lovecraftian stuff at this point? Because
Probably.
I get so much from everything else.
I mean, we probably do need to do a whole episode on Lovecraftian stuff, so you should read it at that point at least.
Right. Like if I start listing off some of the more well-known monsters and the gods and I get blank stares from you guys, then you don't know nearly enough Lovecraft, which
it's also
because it's Lovecraft probably works for you. So you're not nuts.
It's like really like it was written like the stories were written a pretty long time ago right?
Early 1900s.
Yeah. How's the language in them? Like I know that I didn't have much trouble with Dracula, which is also like what, early 1900s?
Late 1800s, I thought. So
I thought the language in that was actually fine. But I read the Danish version at the time, though.
It's probably pretty similar. So, like, it's definitely more modern, but like there are some things where it's more proper, but it's not like reading like the Scarlet Letter or something. Like it's decently understandable. So
because I am very much into urban fantasy, not so much classical literature or even fantasy, high fantasy stuff. It's not really my thing that much.
Right. Well, and depending on your perspective, like I would say that it's sort of the start of the modern era in a way, because like a lot of the stuff that Lovecraft incorporates into his stories were the bleeding edge at the time. So, we're just starting to explore space even through telescopes and things like that. So he's got some stories that deal with space phenomena that by today's standards is like, yeah, okay, we know there's no, at least the official story is that there are no monsters living on the moon, stuff like that, right? You've got a lot of stuff about like the deep Amazon and like ancient Egypt, and all of these things were really cool, hot topics at the time, and there were still these unexplored corners of the world, but by and large these days, like we explored those corners. So in the last 100 years, we've cast off a lot of the veil of mystery that he was writing and using. But otherwise, like I still think some of it's pretty compelling. Like, some of his main monsters live on Pluto, but they called it something else. But it's basically commonly understood that it's basically Pluto. So fun stuff like that.
Okay.
There are the classical literature stuff I kind of want to read or listen to, like Captain Nemo, the Nautilus. What is that story called?
20,000 Leagues. Yeah.
I think that's good too. Like, it's a classic for a reason, right?
Right.
But I'm going to bring us back to Dresden.
Ridiculous. We're talking about Dresden.
All right. So Jim was asked the question, will Thomas ever wield Amarachius again? When was Thomas ever wielding Amarachius in the first place? Or am I just misremembering something?
See, and that's what I thought. Like, I was like, wait a minute. It was Susan and Murphy, right? So,
I mean, other than Michael, obviously. It's like, Thomas? I don't know. Right. But he said that if he still has fingers left,
he's going to be fine.
But, I mean, we don't know how white court vampires recover fingers if they ever do. We just saw that one of his sisters apparently lost one.
I'm pretty sure if he has a functioning body, he can like regrow anything.
I mean,
that'd
be kind of cool, but it's also if he still has fingers left, maybe, I think he said. So that's like maybe Thomas could, really. That'd be nice. I think he's a good wielder for Amarachius.
Well, it's kind of like how Mab teases Harry about Thomas in the first place, where it's like, I don't think Jim has fully made up his mind minute to minute for some of these things until it's written. And so, like, if Harry had picked up like the Dark Hollow instead, or the coin instead, then Mab was still going to need a knight, and Thomas would have been that knight. And so, like, there are some of these things where he's like in the middle of writing, and he's like, "Shit, I don't know who's going to do what right now." And I think
almost D&D Game Master-ish to me.
Oh yeah,
but
for
he keeps
sure.
it open in his head.
Right. because he's got a lot of the broad strokes of stuff that's going to happen. But yeah, he probably doesn't know who the wielders are minute to minute, book to book. And maybe Thomas is a wielder for a couple hours. He's one of those knights.
Maybe. But just think about the things that he's going to be going through in peace talks. Thomas alone, he's dealing with the fact that the woman he's in love with is pregnant with his baby, that it might kill her, and he probably also wants to be a decent father. He has to deal with his sister probably wanting to kill the woman that he loves, and he probably definitely gets to meet his grandfather.
Probably, definitely. We can hope.
Yeah, no, I think he's confirmed. It will happen in peace talks. It's just whether or not they survive the encounter is the question. And if all of that family tie is running around and the people that he loves, it makes perfect sense for him to pick up Amarachius to defend them.
I'm going to be so sad if my judgment of character for Ebenezer doesn't hold true. I think he'll have reservations about his grandson being a White Court vampire. I think for him, regardless of that, family trumps everything.
I think for that, it will kind of depend on how much he'll blame Thomas for being his father's child instead of recognizing that it's Margaret's child as well.
Right.
And also
it's
the fact
kind
that
of guilty by association.
The sins of the father is not the sins of the child. And also just because he's a White Court vampire. I mean, I think we know because we've seen it, right? And Ebenezer doesn't have that same kind of insight, but Thomas he's a good person. He wants to do what's right, and he's fighting this evil nature.
Which was one bonus. If he picks up Amarachius and can touch it, then Ebenezer would be able to see that, yeah, he genuinely loves a person.
Right. Like, I was just thinking, I was like, wait, Amarachius, the sort of love, like, this is not going to end well. So maybe that's what he meant by if he has any fingers left, because when he grabs the sword, it's going to, like, burn his hand off. Because... like, what are your options at that point? Like, that is potentially a mechanism altering aspect of the story. Like, I think maybe, you could go as far as, like, maybe it would cure him. It would kill his hunger or whatever, but...
That's a pretty popular fan theory, right?
I mean, it could be that. It could just, even if it is for just a few hours, allow him to protect Justine.
Right.
And that's the thing that'll actually, like, trigger him to do it, just like with Susan and Maggie. It burned her in Death Mask, but she was able to wield it for Maggie.
In Death Masks?
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she, like, touches the sword. I don't remember in what context. I don't remember she touches it. And she gets burned.
I think it's when she was...
It's one with Paulo Ortega, right?
Harry. Yeah, that's the one. I don't remember exact context, but she touched it and it burned her. He's like, what the hell is that? It's a magic sword. Oh, well, it sucks. And then they moved on.
Gotcha.
Unless it wasn't Amarachius and it was Fidolachius.
It was Amarachius, I'm pretty sure.
I thought so.
Also I'm pretty sure she also says in, like, changes that, like, it didn't go so well last time.
Right, but...
And it would make sense that it was the Sword of Faith because, Red Court. So...
Yeah, I don't know. But, for the same reason that Susan was able to in changes, it makes perfect sense for Thomas, especially with all of the conflict he has in peace talks.
Right. But potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like how we're talking about it like it's been written.
I mean, we know a lot of the things going into it. We just don't know what's going to...
Well, like I said, peace talks is definitely my vote for everything happens, okay? Because so many things have to happen at this point.
So the dragon definitely returns in peace talks, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that's not happening. I say
later.
It's book 19, right? It has to be. Oh, unless he extends it by 1 or 2 books. So if we go with the book...
It's going to be the one right before the BAT.
Well, yeah, because... So first, we got 2 things. Well, 3 things. Because we already know Mirror Mirror. We know... so if you paid attention, Director, you probably caught this, but in the Q&A, Priscilla tells Jim that heel turn is what the internet voted on for book 18, right? For the wrestlers, because it's a wrestling thing and it fits the 2 things and, like the 2 words and whatever. So now that's in his brain. And he's like, well, since the internet decided, I guess it's done. Yeah. But then, pretty much that leaves like book 19 and book 20. So unless we're saying Nicodemus is trying to, like, do shenanigans with a dragon, and that's your A-B plot, it's probably book 19. That's my vote.
Get a coin to a dragon?
Well, that would be funny.
With a
We already think Ferrovax has been infected. I like that
No,
word.
we don't.
We think it. We don't know it, but like he got a box of stuff at Bianca's party where people were getting infected all over the place, including Lianchi.
Well, she's the only
Isn't
one that we know for
Lianchi the
sure,
only
right?
one we know got infected?
Right.
But it's the same type of behavior that's been affecting the Red Court. It's like Bianca probably was, or maybe Paolo Ortega, since he was there.
So Bianca, like the Red Court acting against its nature and like acting differently. Bianca's from the Red Court and is infected and then infects the Lianchi.
Well, because the other thing is we know Dresden got something and he didn't get infected. So we would have to either say that's because he's Starborn and he can't, or that not everybody got.
From Bianca. Ferrovax and Leah basically got something from Cal and Komori.
Sure. Okay.
So there's like a slight difference there.
I'm not sold on the fact that he's infected, and the way that you keep whispering about dragons, like Jim always kind of brings it up and stuff, like the big D dragons, is like they're all but deities in their own right. So I'm not like, could they be infected, right? Like it's the difference between sure Leah, sure Maeve, but could Mab actually be infected? Could.
I mean, isn't that Titania's worry?
Right. That's fair too. So like, and then could the mothers be infected and blah, blah, blah. Like there's still a lot to be understood there. So I'm not sold that he is infected. But yeah, I like the prospect of it. And I mean, part of the other thing, because book 19 is because maybe theoretically, hopefully Dresden is going to have enough power to deal with it by then, but probably still not. So
my theory is that Starborn can't be infected, everyone else can, including any type of deity or mother or so forth. Everyone in our reality, including the Never Never, which is part of our reality, can get infected.
Right. And I'm not saying no. I just feel like it opens up a lot of other questions. Like, why didn't they just go for Mab first in the first place then? Was that too obvious? Like
needing access, I think it's probably. I mean,
I think it's an access thing. It's a power thing.
Right.
Like it's not easy to do. I think it was very hard to infect people.
That's fair.
And people can probably fight back because there's not so much with Map. They kind of at the point where they don't have free will, but beings with free will have free will and can fight back. I think.
Well, and that's been going around the Dresden Files subreddit's Discord channel, right? Was that like you need free will to fight it? But we saw Cat Sith fighting it in Cold Days just because he was given a direct order and Nemesis wanted him to work against his nature. So it's not cut and dry that you need free will or anything like that. Definitely the fairies aren't just falling in line, but it's probably the same kind of thing as general manipulation anyway. It's like, so sure, it's causing the fairies to be able to lie and to be able to do other shenanigans, but really it's what they want to do anyway. Whereas with Cat Sith, he wanted to follow the order and Nemesis definitely didn't want him to go get Harry a Coke.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Cat Sith and Leah. Leah also wanted to go to be a fairy. That's what she wanted to be. That's why she chose it. So, I mean, yeah, you can fight it. Whether or not fairies have free will, that's not the question.
Right.
The thing is, I think fairies have really big powers, like Map. The less like you have is kind of the theme of the Dresden Files, right?
Yeah, the more power you have, the more restrictions you have on it. Just like the mothers, even though they're the most powerful, are the least capable of using it.
I don't think that the fairies or the she more specifically, I feel like they have choice. They have free will. They're also the most mortal of the Never Never denizens. Like they're the closest to our world. I remember right. I think that's said at some point.
Yeah, because like all the ways that they affect our world. Yeah.
And Leah, for example, could try to say no to Mab if she didn't want to do something.
Maybe with between Leah and Mab, because of the ties that Leah has to Mab of promises and debts and all of that. That's how Mab has her power. So Leah may or may not be able to say no. But, I mean, slightly different thing. I want to go back to the dragon.
Right.
Because it kind of sounded when he was talking about the dragon that it's just a little slip of words that he planned a book with a fight of a dragon.
Yeah. It's in the
so it's like, right. And you keep saying that it'd be book 19 because we know Mirror Mirror and heel turn, we'll just call it that way. It's been decided by the internet. But it doesn't mean it can't happen in peace talks.
Yeah, okay. I know, but holy crap. Like, I mean, okay, so, and that's actually important too, and I'm probably doing this a little bit out of order, but he does talk about the kaiju as well. Yeah. Which is probably also going to be like book 19. So I don't know.
I mean, kaiju makes sense to put later. Let's bring back the dragon earlier.
Right. So, and maybe that's the thing. Like, I keep imagining a fight breaks out in the street, or there's some kind of magical bomb goes off or something, because Peace Talks is supposed to be like, and he confirms it again in the Q&A, the mortal world is very much going to know magic is a thing. Like, all of that, you know, ignoring magic is going to be done very quickly, if not during Peace Talks. Like, Peace Talks is going to be the first blow, but we don't know if the lid's going to be fully off at that point or not. So that's why, like, the whole, I think he actually discussed it during the kaiju thing, is like, oh yeah, by then the mortal world won't be able to ignore it anyway.
He said, so, in the BAT, mortals will definitely know what's going on.
Right.
But I do remember him saying that the whole facade ends up getting torn down during Peace Talks, and everyone thinks it's because the dragon comes down. It's like, I really hope so, because that's what I've been picturing for a long time.
Okay, and I'm good with that too. Like, because like I said, I was thinking the Fomor giants, whatever. So maybe that's what it is. Is, you know, we get some nice Eberron D&D magic or D&D story going on with the ice giants fighting dragons, and Dresden's got to do whatever, and yeah, that could be fun.
And Tilly is just there going, "What the fuck goes on?"
Right? It'd be like, that's really big, and I'm really tiny. Let's do this. Okay.
I have a feeling Tilly's gonna be like the liaison between the magical community and like the mortal government or something.
Nah, that's Murphy.
I don't think so. I think it's gonna be Tilly. Murphy's a disgraced cub.
Yeah, she doesn't know things, and she's short.
In their mind. But it's actually funny now that, you know, with the Dresden Files, I have a hard time imagining that, you know, it's gonna be out in the open because it's a world in my head with this happening in the background. But most other urban fantasy books that I've read or listened to, most of them actually have magic as being integrated into our world and being part of our world. And people know. It's not the whole secret underworld magic thing is mostly Buffy and Dresden Files. Like, most of the books I've read, it's like, oh, you know, 20 years ago this happened, and now magic is a part of our world, and then it goes from there. It's going to be interesting to see that, to actually see the transition in the world versus many of these others where it's just been like, that's the setup.
That's true. It'll be fun. All right.
So I'm looking forward to it.
So he says that he's taking Mirror Mirror straight from the Star Trek episode, which Justin says is a classic, but neither I nor Andreas have seen it. So who has the eye patch and the goatee?
So I don't recall the eye patch specifically, but I mean, the goatee is everybody. That's kind of the joke, but it's really so I wish I was wearing my Mirror Mirror shirt today, but I have a Mirror Mirror Star Trek shirt. And so it's Leonard Nimoy playing Spock and evil Spock. And the difference you can tell is because, I mean, obviously the uniform is different, but he wears a goatee when he's evil Spock. Like, evil Spock has a goatee. So there's a lot of that sort of thing in the Mirror Mirror Star Trek episode, where for them, it's not one decision like it's going to be for us. It's like their whole, instead of a peaceful coexistence with Vulcans, you actually see this in Enterprise, if I recall correctly. But the Vulcans land to make peaceful first contact, and like the humans shoot them and take their ship. So it's like a fully different like evolution of the structures involved there. In our Mirror for Dresden Files, he keeps saying it's going to be one decision that's different. And so I'm torn between the Star Trek understanding, which is basically the world is different, and this is literally going to be a shade of our world instead of a mirror in a way, because I'm on the side with a lot of people where I think the main decision that he changes is what happens to Susan and whether he fights or not at that pivotal moment where he's like, man, I'm really fucking tired and I just want to go home. But first, I've really got to bring this house down. Whereas, like, he might actually accept Ortega's deal in Mirror. That's kind of what my ultimate idea is. And so then instead of necessarily getting where like the White Council's really the Black Council and whatever, like you would have in a Star Trek Mirror, it's more going to be like one of the theories that I saw in the last couple of weeks or so was kind of interesting where it was like, so the war still kicks off and Dresden's still the cause of it. But because he's like this Dark Lord vampire count or whatever, you know, because we want Count Dresden because that would also finish the whole, he went to Bianca's party as a cheesy vampire as the Count. But yeah, so that's part of the theory and it fits really well in my mind. So Mirror is probably going to be that. And so then you've got, instead of, you know, you've got the good Marcone and whatever, is like you've pushed these people into their choices. So I'm sure like Marcone's going to be a good guy, but he still was a criminal. So he's more going to push the anti-hero instead of like he's going to be the paladin. Because like in a Star Trek Mirror, you would have just flip everybody along their x-axis and now we're the same, right? We're just evil people. Whereas we're going to have like Vampire Susan, we're going to have Vampire Harry, we're going to have, because these are all ramifications of that one choice. So
and Harry, the Mirror Harry will be a red cord like wizard?
That's in my mind, because he also talks about how dangerous wizard vampires are. And so I think you're going to see that pay dividends, and you're going to see the White Council, specifically Morgan, potentially try and track him down. And, you know, like you're still going to see a lot of the same shades, but they'll make more sense and you'll get more color of the world in some of those things. Because like, think about some of the themes in the whole series, like when Rashid confronts him in Turncoat and talks about how this dark wizard has been gaining power, and Harry's like, I just fucking made friends with the little fairies. That's what you guys are worried about? Like, think about Dresden actually being the bad guy. And now all you have to do is make this tiny little change, you know, and Turncoat really is like the same kind of story, because that's part of the other fun too, is that it's also Mirror in the Mirror Universe's side. So all of those events have happened for the last, you know, 12 years or whatever since he made that change. So that's one of the things that's kind of interesting too. It's like, does the White Council even exist? Did Peabody pull off whatever his shenanigans were? Like, did the Red Court beat them in Sicily? Like, all of these things are super exciting, and I think that's part of why everybody's almost more excited for that in a way than even Peace Talks. You know, don't get me wrong, Peace Talks is going to be a big fucking deal, but you're going to see so much crazy shit out of Mirror, and there's so much more room for speculation, I think.
Because there is that with more rumor speculation, because what if this little thing is different? What if this character shows up, or what that, or whatever? It's like, I don't think Harry will be a vampire, but I do think he'll be like dark wizard with a goatee. Right. And then like if he has the eye patch, it's like, did the Shag Nasty actually take his eye? Or does that mean that he actually fought the Shag Nasty?
Or does somebody else have the eye patch? Like, right. Did Michael's eye patch because he and Harry actually dueled? Because you think Michael's just going to let him walk out of there switching sides? Like, there's so much. Like, and yeah, in Deadbeat, did Deadbeat happen? What happened to the Dark Hollow? Did Harry actually join him and like take the Dark Hollow? So he's not the Winter Knight, he's Dark God Harry, and that's why he's doing what he's doing?
Probably did changes happen? Or is the Red Court even still there?
Right. Like, so many things to speculate on.
I like how Jim actually brings this up in the part I got time to listen to, is that what action would seem perfectly reasonable, logical, and not evil or threatening at all from Harry's point of view, like building Little Chicago because it will help him investigate and keep track of stuff. But seen from the outside, is totally a supervillain thing. Like having a miniature version of the city down to the last detail in your best basement. Yeah, Lex Luthor would do that.
Right. I thought that was a great part of it too, with like the whole, little Chicago. I forgot actually that was one of the first questions, if not the first question, right? Was the whole like, what if he took like, little Chicago out to Demon Reach, and I like,
oh God, why would he do that?
Right. So
not even Harry would do that.
Yeah, not even Harry would do that, because the evilness of Demon Reach would like seep in to Little Chicago, and it's like, that's just also, it looks really weird. Like, why would you have that?
Right. Yeah, no, I love the whole like, who would have a Scales City model in their basement?
That weirdo over there. That
right.
one.
And Lex Luthor. So, which is just another one of those things like Rashid's list, where it's like, you've done this and that and the other thing and whatever, and we see it from Harry's perspective, where it's like he was the good guy. And Rashid is like, I think you are a good guy, but you got to know people are talking, man. Like, only Lex Luthor and Harry Dresden have scale models of the city in their basement. Like, come on.
But that brings up the whole thing you were talking about with how Rashid and other people think he's evil. Where like, if that Jim even is like considering what would be like completely reasonable from our point of view. But as soon as some other character brings it up to Harry, he looks like a supervillain. Because I didn't think about Little Chicago basically being a supervillain thing to do, but when he brings it up in that context, I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's definitely like Harry, like presenting him in a way of, it could be questionable to anyone who doesn't know exactly what he's doing. Like the readers, it's like, oh, that's why you guys didn't like me.
Yeah, we do get it all from Harry's point of view also. So for all we know, by the end of the book, we get another point of view from someone else, and it's like, oh, Harry wasn't the villain all along.
Right.
Because nobody's a villain in their own story, right? In their own mind.
Right. And that's, I'm going to use that to take us to like what he said about book 18, supposedly heel turn, is that he says Harry basically breaks down Ares' woodshed. And therefore he has to fix the problem. And that's why he gets into the whole wrestling thing. And so that definitely seems like it's going to be Greek gods themed instead of possibly people were thinking that Thor shows up. I doubt it. Apparently, if all the Greek people are there, probably not.
I'm still waiting on Thor. Thor's going to be there.
Yeah, we need Thor.
Yeah, or at least we're going to get a nod of like, well, he would be here except he got squished by an ice giant or something.
That's impossible.
But of the way Thor is handling the Iron Druid Chronicles, if you guys ever read that, it's awesome.
I read some of the Iron Druid Chronicles, but it's like kind of lost my interest. See, Atticus starts out as a badass, but Harry starts out as this tiny puny thing, and he works his way up to a badass, and I like that better.
Atticus is 2,000 years old. Of course he's a badass.
Yeah, I'm okay with them starting at like, dumb and 20.
Good books, I think. I think people misunderstand them a lot.
He's got the snark, but he's too awesome. He needs to be the underdog a little bit more. Not always, but a little bit more. But did you catch that Jim said he might have 20 or 21 case files?
And it's been a theory for a while that it might go as high as...
He said that before, I'm sure.
I think it's been said that he'd go as high as 24 at some point. So that one's a little bit of an outlier, but the 20 number is what he had in his mind, but he's mentioned for a long time that he's a little bit behind schedule. So
but that changes.
Originally planned 20 with the bigger productivity trilogy after, but he added more stories along the way, so now it's like 21, 22 or something.
Right.
I mean, but he has said before, or at least someone was asking him before, I think it was one of his Reddit AMAs, of like, if the first book that we get, or before the BAT, it starts as 20, and that's obviously going to be a Denarian novel, then do they have something to do with how it gets kicked off? And you're just like, you're thinking kind of smart. It didn't answer anything. So it's like, if that is actually going to be the connection, if you break the chain and then you start at 21, how the hell's that going to happen?
Well, and I think that's what he has to figure out in a way yet still, in my mind. Like if book 20, if it's 20 case files and then the apocalypse, that's the Denarians, right? That's a very clear cut way of doing that. But if you go like 21 or 22 books, it either violates his pattern or somebody else is kicking off the apocalypse. So this may be another thing where it's like, look, Harry can go one of three ways. He can either take the Dark Hollow, he could take the coin, or he can be the Winter Knight. And so it may be like, look, the Denarians want the apocalypse. We've seen that. They're capable of doing it. We've seen that. So do they actually pull it off? Or what it looks like more and more is that it's going to be, outsiders directly instead of like something Nick does to the outsiders or for the outsiders or whatever, so like maybe that's where we're going to see it slide a book or two. But,
yeah.
And maybe he's able to make up room because there's still a lot of room for AV plots. Like if Peace Talk's like big B plot monster ends up being the dragon, then that takes out a book that I couldn't figure out where it goes. And book 19, it's like, well, yeah, cool, we've got a kaiju, but somebody's still trying to kidnap Harry and sell him on eBay because that's his life, So for all we know, there's like another thing. So he might be able to squish it back down a little bit, but I mean, I'd rather have more books and have them well written than have less books because we wanted to hit a number. So
yeah, and the well-written part is what we probably want more of than instead of just like, okay, you did it, but it wasn't as awesome. So, but it's just like, I want to know what kicks off the BAT and why. And it's like, yeah, I just want more books, essentially. But
hello, sorry. Is my sound better now?
It is.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So there was a couple of your question, Justin, about Cinder Spires that he didn't really answer. What was your question?
So it had to. I was trying to bait him with the whole like. So when we're in the tavern and we're talking to Commodore Pine, and Master Ferris makes an ironic comment about, the Olympians are said to be possessed with a certain kind of fury, which is ironic if you know your history. There are some things I've seen online that have been like, this might actually be like a Codex Alera tie-in. And so yeah. I tried to bait him with that, and I realized afterwards, because I was like, so he didn't really answer the question, and then he turned it into like a 5-minute preview for the book, which is really cool because we got a bunch of new material for that book that I hadn't heard as well. But it was like, he had no fucking idea what my question was. Like, he didn't take the bait, but he probably just didn't even know that theory was out there. So I would say that's kind of like confirmation in the negative that, there is no tie-in there in my mind anyway. But yeah, because I was kind of playing that back through, and it was like, because I tried to circle him back around to really answer the question, because he didn't, like, he just went off on his own thing in answer to the question, and then he's like, yeah, sure, whatever, kid, and like, and then we moved on to the next question.
He's not that much older than you, is he? Like, he's older than you, but you're like early.
About 10 or 12 years, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, man, then he can't call you kid.
I call my brother kid, and I'm only 3 years older than he is. So,
well, that's your brother. That's people. Like your brotherly right.
Right. I call lots of people kid, but it was the whole. It's just the perspective, right? And I realized afterwards, I was like, yeah, he didn't take the bait because it wasn't there. Like, there was nothing there. So.
Yeah, it could be that, but it did sound like he was trying to. You were asking about history, and he says, "Oh yeah, you'll get history because I have to explain things." It's like, okay, how much history are we going to get? We'll have to see. Right. But he says that the ambassador from Albion, who you were representing as the Verminoster, woohoo,
right, woo,
they're going to be sending the ambassador, which is what's her face, Gwen's father.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, he did
part.
Say it was going to be her father. It was the ambassador, and so they're escorting him there. And Commodore Pine will be there because everyone's going to Spire Olympia. They're trying to get Olympia on their side for the various wars. And people are saying maybe we don't have to have bad things happen. And then some people who really want the war is going to make those bad things happen because, of course, they would.
Right.
And that's pretty much what he said.
Right. Yeah, which is cool. So I mean, certainly we're going to have people from Spire Aurora there because at least as far as we've seen, that is the main war going on. But it's possible that behind the scenes during Aeronauts Windless, they were sparking off little grass fires all over the continent or all over the world. So you've got other spires pissed off at other people for other reasons. And I'm sure that's going to be a taste of history you get back. It's like, yeah, but in the war of 200 years ago, you didn't have our back. And we totally fucking remember that because we're dicks and so are you. You know, because that's Europe half the time. So
Yeah.
well, we'll see. It's kind of exciting because the whole political intrigue and, you know, more of the world, and we'll get more of the geography and stuff because like Olympia is supposed to be at least a fair distance away. So you're probably going to see some more mist creatures and shit because I imagine long journeys are fraught with dangers, whether it's other airships or not at that point. But yeah, it could be cool.
Yeah. And then there was a couple of questions about Alira, or well, a couple of comments really. Jim did say that if Alira was to be made into a show, it would be anime, or at least he thinks it should be, because it costs just as much to make giant magical cities as it does to not make giant magical cities, and there's just way too much magic in Codex Alira, which I agree with. Like, you can't do that live
I wouldn't
action.
know. I never got past book 2.
Book 2 was my favorite.
I got like halfway through book 2 3 times.
I didn't even make it halfway through. I think I might have made it like 2 or 3 chapters in tops, but
Nah.
I know it. I had problems with the narrator, so I'm gonna have to go like do it on my own.
Actually read the book instead of depend on audio.
I don't have the time to sit down and read the book. I got so many other things I want to do.
What do you do all
So
day?
I listen to books. And
He
then I play
reads,
games
man.
at the same time. Yeah. I got to farm stuff for World of Warcraft. I got to play other games. I got to listen to audiobooks at the same time.
You could get a friend to read it to you, probably.
I'm probably gonna have to pay them, and then they're probably gonna be a worse narrator than the narrator, even though the narrator's not great.
Well, you should actually get through it. 'Cause it's a fun book. It's a lot of fun. And then there was this question that actually Kitty Krell asked is, do Tavi and Kitai have a daughter named Kavi? And so the context of this is that Kitai is eventually the girl that Tavi marries, and also they're kind of weird bond-connected magical thing there. She has
Spoilers.
Yeah, really, seriously, spoilers. She has silver hair and green eyes because he has green eyes and she has silver hair, and magic stuff's going on there. And the book series ends with them having a son. But Kavi is actually the name of Jim's assistant in Denver, and she has silver hair and green eyes. So And he said, yes, officially canon. They'll have a daughter named Kavi.
Right.
How many years does the Codex Alera from start to finish go over?
He starts at 15, and I think he ends around the 25 era.
Okay.
There's, 6 books, and it's generally about 2 years in between each book.
I didn't get the impression there was 2 years between the first and the second book. But
Well, he's 15 in the first book, and then they establish he's 17 in the next book, and then it's like, 2 years ago, and that whole crap happened. It's like,
yeah,
2
I
years
just don't
between each
remember
book.
that being said, but I felt like it was like a year later or half a year later or something, but whatever.
Right. Well, speaking about babies, he talked about Maggie a little bit. And
She's
apparently,
like 8 years old, man.
yeah, not baby, children, offspring.
She's more than 8 years old, right?
Yeah, she's like 10 at this point,
Yeah.
11, 12.
It's like almost starting teen years soon.
Yeah,
That's
that'll
gonna-
be fun.
That's gonna
Yeah,
be
right.
great.
He didn't get any of the fun, 2-year-old stages. He's like, oh, we get to go straight into teenagehood. Shit.
Got to skip terrible twos, but he gets the teen years.
Yeah. But apparently it's undecided whether or not she gets magical ability. But Susan's half vampire nature is probably definitely going to have an effect on her. So what the hell would that be?
Right.
Does she just
I don't know.
really like rare steaks or what?
Yeah, right. Is she a little bit stronger than your average kid? Are her kisses intoxicating? Like, I mean, when she's a preteen, these things matter. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of interesting things. Like maybe, like does she have some light hypnosis when she looks into your eyes instead of, a strictly speaking, a soul gaze? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be all fun to. Then he hasn't finished the young adult series with her yet, but he's still working on that. And we'll be able to see the things through her perspective, especially in Zoo Day, eventually. But her magical ability is yet undecided. But if she does have something, he says it would have to be something different than any of the other major characters. Not explosive as so much as Harry is, or mind magic like Molly, something different.
She is from the lineage of Ebenezer and Harry, so she's probably going to have a good magical bank.
So yeah, and also Margaret.
And Margaret, who's also a very accomplished wizard.
Yeah, and she did all the fairy things, and Dresden also does a lot of fairy things, although no fault of his own.
Ebenezer doesn't do much fairy things. Actually, I wonder if his wife was like involved with fairies, or she was their mother.
She was vanilla mortal.
Right. So I guess that's not really an answer, but I would lean towards no. So
maybe she was Winter Knight.
You got a weird definition of vanilla mortal there, man. So
yeah,
the knights started vanilla mortals.
Well, now that's a crazy fucking thing to think about. Like maybe Harry's grandma was a Knight of the Cross. So, like, yeah, sure, she's a vanilla mortal with a big freaking sword.
Big freaking holy sword.
Right.
Great magical powers that can, like, fight fallen angels.
Mm-hmm. But speaking of the Winter Mantle, because someone asked, like, if Harry will ever get rid of it, it sounds like that's very undecided, because he said that Harry probably doesn't want it for the rest of his life, but that still only happens if he actually survives the BAT, which is not decided yet.
Right.
But all of these books are Harry's journals written down later, so he has to survive at least to do that, right?
In theory, I mean, I've been recently thrown by a loop for something like that in another book series anyway. But yeah, my assumption and my headcanon until it's written is going to be that Harry's going to make it, and this is him looking back, right? This is Bilbo's stories. This is, the Lord of the Rings, whatever that he wrote in a sense. And so, and Ebenezer's journals and the Merlin's journals and whatever. So
yeah, that's kind of where I am at with it. That it's like, it's entries into these journals. It's his legacy. It's continuation of these journals. This is the case files.
Yeah,
and I think
I've gone assuming.
Right, and I think I've gone as far as to say that he's probably going to carry the mantle the whole rest of the series, but I think he will eventually escape it as part of his prologue happy ending type of situation. So that's what I'm going to go with, but. At the rate the books are being written, that's 6 to 10 years in the future in real time. So,
but it's just there's a lot of undecided things right in what he said there, but there's just enough hints that he has to survive long enough to write the journals at least.
Or Molly finishes them.
That would be a big break. That'd be risky.
Or something.
An author is to have someone else finish them would be kind of off.
I'm sure it would be the in-universe explanation, but he'd keep the narrative, right? Because Molly's enough in Harry's head to be able to do that.
I don't know. It would be weird if she finished them while talking from his perspective. To me, that would be odd.
In my imagination, the best, the thing that comes to mind anyways is the whole, How I Met Your Mother. You're going to have a quick entry. This is the story. And then you're going to go on the episode for 3 seasons and forget that's actually what's happening. And then it's P.S. Molly was writing the journal the whole time, because that's the way that you could suspend your disbelief on that a little bit. But I mean, it's always going to have to be Harry's perspective, other than the side stories, which is why they're there.
Mm-hmm. But he did say that if Harry loses the mantle, which he probably will at some point, or at least he'll try, it's not an easy thing to do, because you can't just say thanks for the time, bye to Mab. You have to do a little bit more to make her happy, like Tam Lin.
Yeah, except Tam Lin didn't do any of that shit. He just turned into a horse, a goat, a burning coal, and then was thrown into a well. And I mean, I'm simplifying, but
and then
it's only an hour-long
did
show.
all of the work.
Right? Yeah, she's the one who got lit in fire and then thrown in the well. So
yeah, so she's did the work that actually got him free. So maybe Harry just needs a Janet.
Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lucio for, those few, like 3 people out there that still hold that torch.
Excuse me? There are more. There are more than me.
Oh, I have to
Dozens.
assume. Yes, right. Out of a world of 7 billion people, I have to assume you're not the only crazy person.
I mean, if anyone want to just PM me on Discord or something, we can we can make a club.
I
Dozens.
want to be a part of your club anyway. I mean, I want it to happen. I don't think it's gonna, but it would be amazing if it did.
Yeah, of course it will. It's the best. It's how it's gonna be. After Murphy dies,
Blasphemy.
Speaking of people dying, no, I'm just
Michael.
kidding. Yeah, right. I'm not surprised by this answer. I was just glad that he was able to say it in as many words. So the question was asked, like, which of his characters is most important to Jim Butcher himself? And if you've ever seen some of his Q&As before, like where he talks about the book series that he read that he kind of based Michael off of, and that Michael was going to be like the man's man, like the ultimate paladin type of thing. Like he gushes a little bit. And so I was not really surprised at all. Like I mean, he talks about like Michael is the kind of person that most men want to grow up to be, right? So like that sort of thing where it was like, in a more perfect world, more people would be like that forgiving, that patient, that understanding, and that ready to kick somebody's fucking ass if it came down to it, So.
Yeah, the way he described writing Michael is like it makes you really think about right and wrong to write someone who's so good as him. And that makes you like you realign your perspective and have to look at the rest of your life like that after you stick your head in that person's head for a while. And it's like that's why Michael's most important, not just maybe the favorite or anything, but important. And it's like, yeah, that was a good answer. I almost expected him to say something like Maggie, though, because of how much he loves kids.
Kids and dogs.
Yeah, apparently. That's why he likes Salt Lake City.
Right.
You have a lot of babies and a lot of dogs.
Right.
I got thinking about when you're saying that with Michael being the ideal man, and then I was thinking about presidencies and having an ideal man as a president. And the way my thought trained into was that if any of you have seen a TV show called Designated Survivor, it's on Netflix. And the main guy there is played by Keith Sutherland. I think, well, not exactly like Michael. It's actually like, I think they share a lot of traits.
Interesting.
It's just what I arrived to in my short burst of thought there, that there are like both these principled but forgiving and tries to always do the right thing. Mm-hmm. That's why I think they're like, are they like similar character types? If you've seen it, I don't know, or am I like mistaken there?
I haven't seen it, but that's the best hook I've been given for the show for a little while. So the other thing I'd like to just announce, you heard it here first, that Michael 2020 for president. So
I mean, I'm European, so I can't vote on him, but he has to vote anyway. I'd vote
Mike. His campaign.
Speaking of presidencies, George Washington got mentioned at the panel because he was talking about the way he likes the French and Indian Wars. Like, when the senior council was the young hotheads back then in the French and Indian War, George Washington was the wielder of Asparagus.
Which blew my fucking mind, because it's like, I mean, you just kind of assume that he's not given that too much thought and that he's just going to give some of those details a skip. But he's like, no, the fucking president of the United States wielded one of the swords.
The sword of hope.
Right. You can't just drop that bomb and be like, there's nothing else and we're never going to talk about this again. Because it's like, there's a whole series of short stories, at least, if not a whole different book series, you could write on that.
Yeah, but on that subject, he says, but I'm trying to work on the Dresden Files first. How long do you expect me to live to be able to write the French and Indian War Dresden as well? It's like, but you keep mentioning it.
Forever, yeah. Because he also keeps talking about how the short stories are going to kill him, and yet he keeps teasing like more short stories.
Right?
I am so much more interested in the French Indian War books than I am in the young adult one. I'm going to read the young adult or listen to the young adult one anyway, but I would much rather have the French Indian War.
Right?
I mean, he could do something like that as he's doing with the young adult series. He's going to write him with the sister. He could get someone to co-write it with him that, they do the work and he tells them what to do, and maybe we get them faster. Or he just steals the many book writing aliens that Sanderson has.
Right.
And
So
speaking
have Sanderson
of
write the French Indian War.
She's so proud of this transition. You got to let her
I
have
am
it.
so happy with that. Speaking of aliens, Morgan caused the Roswell crash.
Right. It's funny because he's mentioned this. I've actually seen this answered in another Q&A before as well, because someone's like, what about aliens in the Dresden Files? Because, the Dresden Files has everything else. And he's like, I don't know, man. Like, why does it have to have aliens? And he's like, I imagine if they are there, there's one of two things. Either one, it was the she basically fucking around saying, like, let's go tip some cows in the middle of the night. Or two, is that their technology is even way more susceptible to the Murphyonic field. So they probably put some buoy out on the, just outside the moon's orbit saying, don't fucking go over here. Crazy shit is happening,
Yeah.
But yeah, like Morgan, while fighting Shag Nasty, basically potentially caused the Roswell crash. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
and
I really like the tip cows one. That's great. Let's just fuck with them. Let's just really fuck with them.
I mean,
like, because it's got to be
in
something.
their nature.
So your options in universe are either A, it's something we've never seen before, B, because faith, they're denizens of the never never, so. But yeah, it's interesting, but it's funny how that people keep going back there. It's like, don't we have enough trouble here on Earth already without adding in intergalactic, imagine the ways. Imagine being able to take the ways out to Mars because, that's all hooked in by faith and all that jazz,
I mean, well, he did say to get to someone's place, he had to take a way across the moon, right?
Right.
Whose place was that?
I don't recall.
God damn it.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing too, is it's somewhat understood that the ways at least extend out that far, and they're still kind of Earth local, because that's where most of the pathing is, right? Because if it's all based off of the Never Never and based off of faith magic, there are places in the Never Never presumably that you can't get, that's where the Oblivion War kind of cut them off or destroyed them or whatever. But yeah, the places that you can get are all because people believe and whatever. So, and that's why I would extend it to most of the planets, at least on some level, because, they're named after gods.
Yeah. And that's what if the denizens are actually connected to those gods?
Right.
Yeah.
So when he went to the vault and he was at Hades, where was that in the Never Never? And does it have any kind of mapping to our space time where he was really on Pluto, just straight up. So
maybe we'll get more hints of that in Heel Turn when apparently we're going to be meeting Ares.
Right. So,
yeah. Ares was so cool. He's one of the most interesting, all-powerful. I just think he was really he was just a cool dude. I wouldn't mind sitting down having a beer with Ares.
Are you thinking Hades though, from Skin Game?
I'm totally thinking Hades.
Okay, because I'm mostly questioning because it's not the first time I've heard somebody be like, Ares was so cool, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm pretty sure we haven't met him yet. You know, so.
Oh no, I was totally thinking Hades there. I just said Ares.
Yeah.
Hades was fun, and it's Hades' fault that Harry actually gets involved. He said at some point that it's there's a problem, and he's like, hey, that Dresden dude was really helpful. Let's get him. It's Hades.
He's a pretty cool dude.
I'm not saying you should go get him. I'm just saying, he has my recommendation.
Of the five mortals I would sit down to have a beer with, that Dresden guy was pretty cool. So,
yeah.
I just like the idea of Hades having a list like Andreas, where it was the top 5 gods I would have a beer with, and Hades is the top 5 mortals I'd have a beer with.
Dresden and checks it off because he's actually Mac, and that's been Mac all along.
Ooh.
Dresden is Mac?
No,
Hades.
Hades is Mac.
Hades is Mac. Okay.
I just made that up. Right now
know.
on the spot.
I'm actually, no, I'm totally surprised. No, yeah,
I mean, at some point we got to know more about Mac, but no one asked about that one, so that's on the list. We got to ask more about Mac.
Okay, I really do need to start that list. Where's my phone? So
yeah, we have one somewhere, and he promised that he'll come back and talk to us when Peace Talks comes out in more than a year.
Right. So, well, the good news is we could start scheduling it now. So, P.S. because we know that his convention circuit ends somewhere around Salt Lake Comic Con, so maybe around October, we can look at having him on the show next year.
26 episodes from now.
Yes.
And speaking of episodes, I'm on my game with all the segues. Plug all of our shit so we can end this episode.
So we have other podcasts. We're part of the Broken Jars.xyz network. So let's see. So we've got High Fantasy. We've got Dangerous to Go Alone. We've got Great Scott. We've got The Long Haul.
Yeah.
And then us.
And then we're probably going to be doing another end of the year thing because we've been talking about that. And we need to get the scheduling all set up because Christmas is hard. And that'll be fun. Network-wide thing.
Yeah, like last year. The only problem I have with Christmas is people putting up Christmas stuff like way too early. I like Christmas. Yeah. I just don't like it when it's 3 months.
Right.
Yeah, but we are totally going to do a Secret Santa.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're not supposed to talk about it. The first rule of Santa Club is that you don't talk about Santa Club.
Oh, oops. I said it on camera. All right. I'm going to run away now because Justin's going to kill me. So bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Where's my hatchet?